Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. I knew Benjamin Creme for years and read his articles and in Share National Magazine and read his books for, wow, over 2 decades before he passed. And I still, read his books now and watch his videos on YouTube and so forth. But the thing that you would pick up on if you read as much as I did about Benjamin Creme was when people would ask, before Maitreya came out, right? Because Maitreya has already done his first interview, right? He did it about 9 years ago. But when people would ask him, for years, when is Maitreya's first interview? When's that going to happen? Yada, 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 right? He would always say soon, right? And then soon, 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 soon. He said it for years, right? And then he started using this word forthwith. I guess he got tired of the word soon. And I actually had to look that word up. Because that even means sooner than soon, apparently. But the problem is that a lot of people became dismayed. They didn't believe Benjamin Creme anymore. They thought he was, full of garbage or whatever like that, which he wasn't. It was just the way that the masters view time is differently than ours. So they see it only as one event. They see the past, the present, and the future all happening now. And then when it comes to looking at the future, they see all the probabilities of that future. And then they kind of narrow it down to what is the most likely, right? And so historically, a little side note, most people are totally unaware of this, but Maitreya had to make a executive decision right after World War II, kind of, because the masters actually saw that there was a very, very high probability that we could destroy ourselves because of the nuclear bomb. And it was hoped before World War II that Maitreya and the masters would come out about 1,000 years from now, but they had to kind of hasten their return and come right back within the last century in the 70s because of that probability. And, with all the things that happened under Kennedy's administration, with the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Berlin Wall and all that kind of stuff, you can kind of see what they were probably seeing. Because according to the masters, it came very, 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 very close to destroying ourselves. It took all the efforts of, our governments, people around the world, the Space Brothers even had to help us from totally going off the cliff. But, we survived it. But the masters saw it as a very, very real probability. So that's why initially Krishnamurti, who's a moderately famous guru/teacher who's passed away, but he lived around the turn of the last century. He was being prepped to be the world teacher for this age, just like Jesus was for the last age. But Maitreya had to kind of scrap that plan and go with him coming back by, himself, along with his group of masters, because of that one thing that we could destroy ourselves nuclearly. And so that's kind of the way they see it. Now, when the masters say soon, it doesn't mean in 5 minutes, tomorrow, next week, next month. So when you see Maitreya on TV, or not TV, but if you see him in person and he asks to borrow money and he says, I'll pay you back soon. Yeah. you might get your money back in your 80s or something, No, he doesn't need your money. I'm just kidding. But no, a little side note too, Benjamin Creme's a painter. And one of my favorite paintings that he did was about time. And it's not the most aesthetically pleasing looking painting, but it's the meaning behind it, to me, if I had all the money in the world and I could only buy one of his paintings, that would probably be one of the ones that I would choose to buy, but it had a blue background and a red foreground. And if you know anything about painting, blue, next to red, it almost creates like a 3D effect if you kind of stare at it. So the blue was supposed to be the way that the masters see time as one. It's kind of like it's already happening at the same time. And then the red looked like it was on the foreground. It looked like it was kind of like a linear kind of thing. It's kind of hard to explain. You'd have to see the picture, or the painting. But if you ever go to Benjamin Creme's museum out in California, I think it's out there. I think it's out there, but they at least have a photograph of it. It's an amazing piece, but it's just functionally it's kind of cool the way that, because it's the way that the masters see time. They see both the linear aspect of time like the way that we do, but they also see it as one. So when they relate to us or they try to talk to us about time, it sometimes we can misunderstand and get confused by what the word soon means. So the masters, when they look at time also, there are certain events that will happen no matter what. For instance, the Day of Declaration, right? That will eventually happen, where Maitreya comes out openly in the world and declares himself before the world and fulfills the prophecy, all eyes will see him. And he'll do it telepathically. So we'll actually hear his call to humanity, hear his call for service and so forth telepathically in our own language, in our head. And so that event will eventually happen. Now what happens is humanity's free will creates the timing of it. So the masters don't delay anything themselves, really, as far as I could understand it. It's really just based on how our free will and what's going on with us. So you're talking 7.5 billion free wills out there. I mean, I just don't know how they even keep track of all of us. But anyway, is what really creates the timing of these events. So when people would ask Benjamin Creme, when's his first interview, he would say soon. And because it could have been soon. It was just humanity's free will kept pushing it back, pushing it back, pushing it back. And then obviously Maitreya saw that the time was necessary for him to finally, and it was also advantageous for him to come out and do the interview the way that he did. Now he's still doing it in incognito, so he's still getting his point across and his need for sharing and need for justice and the need for peace and the need to help save our planet and so forth, doing it in a way that is not being recognized as Maitreya, but he's giving out his teachings. Make no mistake about it. So it's just a matter of when people start to connect the dots as, oh, that's who he was, or that could be him, and according to Benjamin Creme's masters, there are people who are starting to do that now. They're starting to realize that he is somebody that's kind of extraordinary, because most people don't talk like this. But so when I saw Maitreya on the street and he said, well, you'll see me on TV real soon, it wasn't next week that it happened. It wasn't next month. It wasn't even next year. But soon we will all see him on TV. And then to finish his quote, he said, we'll change the world together. He knows that we have to do the work, But again, he's on TV not claiming to be who he is, because he wants all of us to want what he wants for the world, which above all is peace, which above all is a sustainable environment, SOP, save our planet, and so forth. So, but when you hear Benjamin Creme talk about it, I mean, it's almost like he's saying it's going to happen next week. But from the master's point of view, 20 years is probably like next week. Most of those guys have been around for hundreds of maybe even thousands of years. So what's another 5-10 years, right? But when we look back on it, whether, in the next 20 years or so, or even, when we come back in our next lifetime or whatever, even, and when we look back at these times historically, Maitreya's timing will seem perfect, believe me. And as Maitreya says, all will be well. Even though it doesn't look like it right now, there's a lot of discord, there's a lot of division in the world and a lot of hate. And, we're talking about going to war with Iran and, North Korea and all that kind of stuff. According to Maitreya, all will be well. But, and as always, take action. Help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos. Have a great day.